Thank you for joining NWA Investing Podcast episode 38. We have some great sponsors for this episode 38 with Henry Washington. Our first sponsor is Ameriland Capital with Josh Williams. Let me tell you something about my friend Josh Williams is doing. Josh owns Ameriland Capital, a mortgage brokerage that's focused solely on investing in real estate. He's here in Northwest Arkansas and has a real passion for helping investors bring their visions to life. Whether you're working on a new construction or rehab project, need a bridge loan, or are looking for a DSCR rental loans, he's got you covered. Josh isn't just about providing loans. He's all about understanding your goals and finding the best solution to make your investment work. You can reach him at www.amerilandcapital.com, and that's AMERILAND capital.com, or you can have his cell 479-200-8865. He is always happy to chat with you. Josh is a guy we had on this podcast. If you go back to the very beginning, a couple episodes, Josh was on here. Great friend of mine. Josh has very high character. He's going to be able to advise you accordingly with some very creative financing. Again, you can reach Josh at www.amerilandcapital.com or his cell 479-200-8865. Thank you, Josh. Talk soon. So our second sponsor is Pure Leaf Lawn Care LLC. They are owned by Joel. Joel is a close friend of mine. We've known each other for a while. Joel has a few talking points he wants me to talk about their company. He's done a great job for me personally with bagging leaves for some of my properties, doing lawn work, mowing. He does a lot of different stuff. They're a family-owned business ran by three brothers here locally, so you'd be supporting local business. They are always on time. They work with their client's budget. They offer full property maintenance to all residents in Lowell, Springdale, Rogers, Fayetteville, and Bentonville. At this time, they're focusing, at this time would be October 23rd, 2024. They're focusing on landscaping, design and install, fall cleanup, snow removal for commercial and residential clients. Joel is a great guy, another great local guy. What I love about our sponsors is they're local, they have high character, and Joel is another one of those guys with Pure Leaf Lawn Care. He's a great owner. You can reach out to him at just look on Facebook, the internet at Pure Leaf Lawn Care. Our next sponsor is Maverick Man Dump Stars. That's DUMPSTAR. This is a business owned by Kobe Snyder. I have used them personally on my new construction builds. They've always been on time. Their dumpsters have been clean. They get them in and out. They're really good at picking up on time and being there on time. Billing is super easy. Anything as far as rehabs, you need to clean out a house, you just need a dumpster somewhere. Maverick Man Dump Stars is a great sponsor for that. They did a really good job at a recent construction site of mine. It was a really tricky way of getting this dumpster in, and they made that happen with ease. It's one of those things where the dumpster business, you kind of just want it to happen. You don't have to worry about it. And Maverick Man Dump Stars makes it happen to where you're not worrying about it. It's an afterthought. They take care of their business. They really do. You can reach Maverick Man Dump Stars at 479-220-9121. Again, that's 479-220-9121. Our next sponsor is ProX Property Management. Tyler Casey is one of the big reasons we got Henry Washington on the show, so I really wanted to give ProX Property Management a shout out here. They're great for all of your property management needs. Tyler and his team do a really good job of managing your portfolio. You can give your whole portfolio over to him, whether you have 1 unit or 5,000 units. He'd love to have that conversation with you. He's really good at having those intake conversations. So if you're thinking about property management, need property management for something, ProX Property Management is going to be your contact for them. You can reach them at 417-680-0707. ProX Property Management is local as well. Tyler's a guy that Brandon and I have golfed with before. He's a great guy, high character, very driven. They're going to take care of your property about darn near as close as you would take care of it. It's really hard to find a company that's going to take care of your property as well as you would, and they're about as close to that as you can get. If you're listening and you need property management, look at ProX Property Management. You can find them at 417-680-0707. Our next sponsor is Arkansas Real Estate Group, Fayetteville. That is my current brokerage where I'm at. Our brokers are Kyle Atkins and Derek Lafargue. The sponsorship is really, if you're an agent listening and you want to have more of a focus on investor-focused agent in a firm that's going to let you do your thing and teach you about the economy and numbers and math and data, and you're going to be able to come on and really understand how to advise an investor, along with your people looking to buy your normal homes. But you want something more. You want something that's going to provide some value to your clients. Arkansas Real Estate Group is a great landing spot for that. I've found life-changing value. I don't really know if I can put a number on the type of value I found from being at Arkansas Real Estate Group. We really do things simple. We don't just take anybody, but we take people that are driven. We take people that really want to learn, and we take people that want to help their clients out in the investing sphere of things. We're very heavily focused there. And that's something that I've been able to provide value to my clients in a way that a lot of other agents can't. And I would say that all of our agents would be able to say the same thing. You can reach out to us at 479-318-0433. Kyle Atkins has been on this podcast a few times, so go back a few episodes back, and then towards the beginning you'll be able to see Kyle on here and him being able to give off lots of wisdom and knowledge. So if you're looking for a spot to land, I think that's good. And if you're listening and you're looking to buy a property, Brandon and I are always great sources to reach out to, but giving a call to Arkansas Real Estate Group, any one of our agents would be able to help you find the right property. We'll be able to run numbers for you. We'll be able to advise you correctly and advise you in a manner that where we're telling you to make a decision that we would make as well. So I can't speak highly enough on Arkansas Real Estate Group. Thank you so much. Welcome to NWA Investing Podcast, episode 38. We have special guest Henry Washington with us. Brandon's with us as well. 3 people, crew here today. Henry, thank you so much for coming on here. We'd like to keep it chill. Thank you, Tyler Casey, for making the connection. ProX Property Management, we'll get to that later. But thank you for your time. We know your time's important, and we really value that. We're just going to kind of jump right in a little bit. Brandon, for the people listening, and they don't know any bit about you, give us like a 30,000 foot perspective about yourself, and then we'll go Henry and myself as well.
Yeah, so if you haven't listened before, Zach and I, both agents, both investors in our own little ways, and both born and raised here in Springdale for me, and I think Northwest Arkansas, Fayetteville for Zach. So yeah, been here a long time, love the area. Very bullish on it, and just kind of a place that I want to be forever. So.
Same sort of story for me. Local realtor, investor, build a few homes per year. So just getting started in life. Brandon and I are both upper 20s, so we're getting rolling, getting things started. Henry, can you give us just like a 30,000 foot perspective? Then we'll kind of dive into that about you.
Yeah. I am been investing in real estate in Northwest Arkansas since 2017. I've been doing the same thing for all those years, single family, small multifamily, real estate. I've got about 120 some odd rental units. We flip about 20 houses a year.
That's great. That's awesome. We also, as we dive in further, we want to use this as a platform potentially for your courses and things like that, and how people can get access to that. So we'd love to use this as a platform for you.
Thank you, man.
Let's start with kind of your origin story. I remember on Bigger Pockets, I had something similar where like I kind of woke up and had a panic attack. Yeah. How I know you've probably told us 1,000 times, but if you could give us just origin story on what you were doing. I know Brandon worked for Walmart as well. Were you working for Walmart?
Yeah. Well,
okay, you're working for Walmart. Yeah. We finally
First of all, everyone here is working for Walmart.
Right. Or in one way or another.
Shape, form, or fashion.
Yeah. Yep. So Brandon, we finally prodded him enough. He's full-time real estate, and he's just absolutely killing it. We're really proud for him. But you had a start at Walmart as well. What did that look like? Kind of your origin story there.
Yeah. They moved me here in 2010 for a job. I did not want to come. I was living in Virginia Beach, and I had a pretty decent job, but Walmart found me literally out of the blue, and after a series of interviews, offered me a job making almost twice as much as I was making over there. And the cost of living was like half as much as it was over there. So it didn't make any sense for me not to take the job. And my goal was to come here, work for a year, save up a bunch of money since my expenses would be so much lower.
Right.
And then go back to Virginia Beach after a year. And then I got here and fell in love with the area and enjoyed working for Walmart. And so I just never left. So I was doing that. I was designing software. I did software development for like 5 years, and then I did some data analytics for about another 5 years. But no, man, it was good. I was single for the majority of my time working for Walmart, and then I met my wife, and we got married pretty quick. So we met and got married 365 days apart, and that forced me to make some financial changes. Because either of you are married?
For sure.
We're both
both
married.
are.
Okay, so you understand. Prior to being married, I had no financial education. So I made good money, 6-figure earner, but I would just spend it all on nonsense. And a lot of that was because of my upbringing. I was raised, upper middle class, and you hear a lot of stories of people that come from the bottom and build something, right? And then there's a people who do that tend to respect the money, right? Because you earned it. So being brought up in a situation where we weren't rich, but I had everything I needed and most everything I wanted. And so once I became single with a good job, it gave me a sense of entitlement. Like I wanted things that I hadn't earned yet, and I had the money to buy them, but I didn't have the money to do much else, right? And so I lived in a way bigger apartment than I lived in. I needed to. I had like a 3-bed, 2-bath townhome I lived in by myself, right? I drove a way nicer car than I needed to drive. I went out to eat all the time, and so I just spent all my money, and then started to accumulate credit card debt, because when I would spend too much, I would just live off credit cards until I got paid again, which I was fine doing that as a single male, without knowing any better. And then I got married, and she was not fine doing that.
Were you modeled? So you weren't. What I'm hearing is you weren't really modeled that from your parents, like the financial literacy part of it. So you had to
we didn't talk about money.
Okay.
No, we weren't like. I distinctly remember being told, you don't ask grown-ups about money. Right? So we never really talked about finances and money and talked about. But my dad was an entrepreneur. He was a teacher, but he also always had a side hustle or a business. So I learned about entrepreneurship, but only through watching. He never even talked to me really about entrepreneurship or how to go start your own business or anything like that. It was more just he did it out of necessity. Teachers don't make a ton of money. But I learned a lot through that. But that's a really long-winded way of saying that I had bad spending habits. And then I got married, and then I had to fix those spending habits if I wanted to stay married. And just had a couple of wake-up calls. Tried to buy a house, and I couldn't be on the loan because my credit was so bad. So my wife had to buy the house and let me live with her. And then we talked about futures and finances, and I was like, I can't afford to live the life that she wants to live. And that's what made me have the freak out moment that I was like, she's going to wake up one day and start looking real close at the numbers and realizing that I can't give her the life she deserves, and she'll leave me. And all of that was nonsense. But in your head, you want to be this provider, and I couldn't do it. So that's what led to the panic attack.
That kind of set you on this course. I love that you mentioned your wife a few times. Brandon and I have talked about it multiple times on the podcast, how I think it's underlooked in real estate. Everyone always talks about the real estate, but a big portion for me, at least, I know for Brandon, is having that spouse on board. Can you touch on how big it is to have that helpmate, that person that believes in you? And because at the start, I had to literally create a PowerPoint. Like, this is why we're going to do this. Convince her over time, and it took a while. So can you speak on that a little bit, on how important that is?
I often joke and tell people that marrying my wife was the best business decision I ever made.
Usually is.
Same.
I stand on that. I think it's phenomenal for a number of reasons. First and foremost, I literally wouldn't be here sitting in front of you having a conversation about being a real estate investor if it wasn't for her. She provided us the funds we needed to buy our first rental property. A story I don't tell a lot is that I was about to quit after having a conversation with Vin, who I thought was a mentor, a local guy. And he basically told me I don't need to be doing this, and I kind of took it to heart, and I was going to stop, but she, essentially, slapped me in the face and said, "No, you said you're doing this, you're going to do it." And so, like, I would have never done any of this or my first deal. Literally, wouldn't have done a deal to start out without her. So just crazy. From the support of financially helping us with that first deal, and then also just from the support of, making sure I stood on my business.
For sure.
As a support structure in my life, it's been huge. But I think the real blessing or cheat code with having your spouse on board is, like, when they're fully on board, then it takes the worry out of it, right? Like, because this is a business where you're not going to hit a home run every deal. You're not going to hit a single. You're going to lose money sometimes. You're going to make a decision about a deal or a property, and it may not be the right decision. And I never have to worry about going home and her being upset with me. Or being disappointed in me for not making the right decision, or worry about her saying, "See, I told you we shouldn't have done this." Or
she's letting you run.
And it's full support no matter what. And
it's amazing.
The peace that comes from that
for sure
is incredible, because this is hard. And you are going to make decisions that aren't going to pan out. And to know that, like, no matter what, I'm going to go home and it's going to be all good. It gives you the freedom to think and operate in your best way possible, because I'm never making the decision based on, like, well, I better get it right, or it's going to be a problem at home, right? I'm just making the best decision I think I can make for my business.
A lot of times you have to be a quick decision maker too in real estate. And so if you had to think about like, is my wife going to approve, or is my partner going to approve, or whatever, like, that could be a barrier for you getting a deal or not getting a deal. So
there's enough pressure in this business, man,
for sure,
to have to deal with that too. And some people do, and I don't.
That was going to be my next question. Is we see it, we see that, but where it's not, they're not joined together on the topic at home, and you can see and feel that, and you're like, dude, you gotta either convince her or just go full stock market or something like that.
Y'all about to get deep. Typically, when people don't have that spousal support at home. Now, I'm going to speak in absolutes. It's not going to be true for everybody, but typically when that situation happens, I think what you find is that there either has not been trust built yet, or the one who needs the support and doesn't have it has somehow betrayed trust on some level. And I don't mean like went out and cheated or anything like that, but like, every time we say we're going to do something and then don't do it over and over, that little bit of trust gets broken.
So why would I trust you in a real estate transaction?
If you're the guy that says, I'll take care of this household chore all the time, and then she always has to do it, like that little bit of trust gets betrayed. Typically we'll find, like, if you can figure out how to be the man that you say you're going to be, then sometimes that trust gets rebuilt. And then sometimes it's just that you have to be able to explain it to your spouse in a way that makes sense for them. Our brains are so different. Just as people individually, but as men and women as well. So I remember we had built a home in Cape Springs, our very first home. We were going to live in together. And then a year or so living in there is when I found real estate and was like, hey, I think we went about this all wrong. I think we need to move out of this house and we need to house hack. And she was like, what? Live in a duplex? What? And so, like, I had to break it down to her in a way that made the most sense, right?
For sure.
So as an example for people, like, the way that I did that was I said, all right, well, our goal as a family was to get to our dream house at some point. And right now, the trajectory that we're on, we would have to live in this house for a couple of more years until we get a couple more raises and promotions, and then we could afford the bigger house, and then we'll move into that one, and then we'll live there for 3 to 5 years as we continue to get raises and promotions until we can probably afford the dream house. So we're 5 to 7 years out from the dream house on the same path.
Right.
But if we sacrifice take the little bit of equity we can out of this house, use it to buy a duplex, and then live in one of the units and rent the other. We'll save. I think I did the math. We were going to end up saving about $15,000 a year. And so instead of us spending that 15, what we planned on doing was just take that additional money and put it in a savings account. And I said, after 2 years, we'll have 30 grand. We can move out of the duplex.
Yeah.
We can buy our dream home. We'll have the down payment because we'll have 30 grand saved up.
Yeah.
We'll rent the other unit we're living in, and then that unit will pay for half of our mortgage
Yeah.
at our dream house.
Yeah.
So I think I can get us into our dream house in 2 years
That's killer.
if you let
Yeah.
us live in this duplex for
Yeah.
a couple of years. So
I love how we're focusing on this kind of beginning stages, because I think a lot of people listening, Bigger Pockets or this, are probably at the beginning stages. They're searching for knowledge. They're like, what are the origin stories? How did stuff happen? I think probably the lesser percentage of people listening are the people with 10, 20, 30, 40. They might feel like they already know it. But a lot of people listening, I think, and even know are starting that origin story. So I think going through that's really big for them. Did you kind of see that your dream home changed over the course of that time?
Yeah,
Did it?
So we did follow that plan. We house hacked for a couple of years, and then we bought, the dream home where we live now, which is amazing. We love our home, and if we have to stay there for the rest of our lives, we'll be totally happy there.
Yeah.
We just don't have enough sunlight in my home,
Yeah.
so I want to get a house with more sunlight. Other than that, like, the layout's perfect for us. The size is fine. Like, we don't need more space. But we executed it just like we had planned. We moved out of that duplex, used that money as the down payment, and then now the duplex that we house hacked still pays for part of our mortgage here.
Yeah.
And I know this is the investing podcast, not the primary home podcast, but
Hey, that is
Or the Marriage Advice podcast.
I would encourage, if you're listening and you're young, because like my wife and I were thinking about, do we buy a dream home? And it's like, I said, hell no. Like, your mind's going to change tomorrow on what you want to dream home.
Right.
So I think it's like we kind of like mentally went, all right, it's a mid-30s to 40 decision, because I'm going to change styles and all sorts of stuff. I think making that decision a little further out is probably better.
Yeah.
Is your wife still involved in real estate stuff, or is she? Do you guys have kids?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do.
Or is she taking care of the kids, or what? In what capacity?
A little bit of both. So
Okay.
we retired her from her day job in 2022.
That's huge. Congratulations.
Thank you. So then she was helping us manage the portfolio, manage the properties, but we've since hired property management. And so now she helps with bookkeeping and taxes. We have an accountant and a bookkeeper who does all that, but it still takes some organization on our part
Full-time
to get
job.
there. So she handles that portion. And then she manages our short-term rentals. She likes hospitality.
Yeah.
She likes
It's cool.
design. And so
She's
does a
she's
lot of
fitting
that stuff.
perfectly right in that spot.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Brandon,
I
you
love
wanna take
that.
over the next section?
Yeah, no, I think it, and just kind of finishing on that, I think it's a lot about delayed gratification for real estate investors, and like thinking about, okay, even though we want our dream house now, and in that situation, maybe you couldn't afford it then, but maybe you could, and you'd have to stretch for it though, and so I think it's cool to kind of think about that, and for others that, like, even Zach and I, we're thinking about, like, where do we want to, what kind of freedom do we want to have, and what do we have to give up now to be able to do that? I think that's super important.
Part of the origin story, last thing, what do you have something that you see a lot of people have the idea, they want to start, and why did you succeed and why did others fail? Is there a one thing, or is it maybe it's a multitude of different things? I mean, we see so many people love the idea, they have the conversation, then it fizzles out. What did you do you think that made it work for you?
I made the decision that I was going to be successful at it before I knew a thing about how to do it.
That's good.
And then I haven't stopped.
That'll preach.
As elementary or basic or simple as that seems, it's pretty much the truth. The only thing that sets apart a successful investor from one who's not successful is the successful one made a decision that they were going to figure it out, and then they never stopped.
Yeah.
No matter if they fell on their face or they kept going.
I love that.
It's just that simple. And people, like, human nature will tell us. I mean, I do it this way in other areas, right? Where we say, oh, this thing is cool, I should try that. And then we research how to try it. And
Yeah.
then we figure out all the things we need to do to try it. And then we start lining up all those things before we start to try it.
Yeah.
And then we get as many of them lined up until we feel comfortable enough to try it.
Yeah.
And then we try it, and then we fail, and then we quit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's most endeavors that we
Yeah.
all do. Like
Yeah.
I do that with like, going to the gym. Right. Right.
Yeah.
But when you think about what it truly takes to be successful, like we don't have to know how right away. You'll
Right.
learn how, but you don't have to know how. And I think a lot of that comes from, I heard you when your phone went off. It was Christian music. So
Yeah,
I believe in God.
Yeah.
And with faith, it's always that's what faith is, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't. I
Can't see
think
it.
that's kind of the cool part is
Yeah.
that's not my job. Like I don't.
Yeah.
It's not my job to know how before I start. My job is just to believe I can do it.
Trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, similarly, if you make a decision that you're going to be successful at something, it's like turning the switch on in your brain to help you figure it out.
Yeah.
Our brains are so much more powerful than we think, like subconsciously, what it can do for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I tell the story of the red truck all the time. Like I just bought a Thunderstorm Gray GMC Sierra,
I saw it. Looks good.
and I'm like,
That's
I
good.
never see these. I should get one.
Oh, you see it
every
everywhere.
other truck now is a Thunderstorm Gray GMC
Yeah.
Sierra. right?
RAS system.
Yeah, right. And so, and it's not that there's more or less now. It's just
Yeah.
my brain is turned on to the fact that they exist, right?
It's out
Yeah.
there.
And so if you just make a decision, you're going to be successful, even though you don't know how. Your brain is going to start to turn on,
Yeah.
pick up on things that were always there that you never noticed that are going to help you get there. And so the how
Yeah.
reveals itself once you make the decision.
I
Yeah.
love that.
I love it.
I comment on that, the RAS, reticular activation system in our brain. I teach young realtors that same thing. I'm like, your job is for everybody in your sphere's RAS system to be turned on when they see a real estate sign, it's going to be you.
Yeah.
So like that, I think that's huge in real estate.
Yeah.
Brandon.
And I love the quote, the place where dreams go to die is the planning phase.
Yeah,
Right?
right,
And it's
yeah.
like, I mean, even up to that point, and even up to the point where if you got to the point where you wanted to do something and you tell somebody, typically they're going to tell you why you shouldn't do that,
Yeah,
right? Because maybe they love you and want to protect you or whatever,
Yeah.
but it's always kind of seems like the roadblock to get you to the next spot. So I think the next part we want to just kind of talk about, a lot of our listeners are kind of starting their real estate portfolio or maybe they've got a few units or something like that. What did your strategy look like when you were first getting into it? And then tell us a little bit about too what it looks like now. I think you mentioned like the house hack may have been the start for you.
Yeah, the house hack was one of the starts.
Yeah.
But my business, man, it's not much different today than it was then.
Really?
Like,
Love that.
I like hearing that.
My first deal kind of opened my eyes to how powerful real estate was. And to make a really long story short about that first deal, what I learned was that I had this bank partner who wanted to fund my deals, right? And so I knew I had funding that
Yeah.
I wasn't going to have to use my own money for. And so what that forced me to figure out is, okay, like if the only way they're going to give me this money though is if I bring them another really good deal like
Right.
I had the first time. So I had to go figure out like, how do I find these really good deals? And that's
Yeah.
when I started to study how real estate investors find good deals, and that led me to learning about wholesalers. And I never wanted to wholesale. I still don't wholesale, but I wanted to market like a wholesaler.
Right.
And so I just read every book or podcast I could find about wholesaling so I could learn how they're marketing for deals, and then I implement the strategies that work for me
Yeah.
and my business and my budget. And so that's still what I do today. I market heavily like a wholesaler. I generate leads. I know now how much marketing I need to do to give me the lead flow that's sustainable for me, right? So I don't just market crazily and then I've got too many leads, and I just market enough to keep my deal flow where I want it.
That's
Yep.
interesting.
And then I buy everything that makes sense, and then I'll either renovate it and flip it, or I'll just stick it back on the market and as is condition and flip it,
Yeah.
or renovate it and rent it either short term or long term.
Right.
That's it.
So you got an equation basically that,
Or I'll sell it as is to another
Yeah.
investor.
Yeah.
But I close on everything.
okay, that's
That's
great.
awesome.
So do you kind of have like an equation that like, hey, if I put out, let's say 10,000 mailers, I'm going to get this return, and
Yeah.
I know that is something like that.
Yeah, similar. Yeah,
Yeah.
very similar.
Yeah.
So we know if we send, between 2,000 and 4,000 mailers a month, how many leads that'll generate for
Right.
us and convert to how many deals. Plus, we have a couple other marketing avenues. I use about 3 marketing strategies pretty
Yeah.
consistently, and then we just keep the lead flow coming in. I buy everything, and then after I buy it, typically I'll figure out what I'm going to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you use REI call center?
Yes.
Used
I do.
to?
Yes.
Oh,
I
yeah.
Do used to. Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess on that, like you're probably marketing to, you mentioned at the very beginning, like single family, small multifamily.
Mhm.
Is that as far as you go, and like you keep it to that niche,
Yeah.
2 to 4 units, or
Yeah.
single family, something like that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that new people will figure out after they do a couple of deals, but if you're trying to figure out like what your niche should be or what your strategy should be, I tell people you need to pick a strategy that meets your financial goals, right? So you obviously need to know what your financial goals are, how much money you want to make and what time frame you want to make it, right?
Yep.
So once you have that, then you need to pick a strategy that A is going to help you get there in the time frame you want to get there, but B also gives you, I call it the warm fuzzies, right? Also gives you some purpose behind
Yeah.
why you're doing it. Because if the only reason you're doing it is because it's going to make you money, then you'll want to jump ship every time
Oh,
you
yeah.
hear about
Yeah.
a strategy that's going to make you money, right? And so I like single and small multifamily because financially it'll get me where I want to go, but it gives me the warm fuzzies because single and small multifamily real estate is about people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Right.
For sure.
Like I buy homes from people, and I can be flexible with those people.
You have conversations.
I can buy a house. I can close on it. I can give them their money and still let them live there for free for 2 or 3 months while
Yeah.
they are figuring out how they're going to go where they need to go. I get
Right.
to help them figure out how they're going to go. Where they
Meet a
need
lot
to
of people
go.
where they
It's
are.
For sure.
if I'm in large scale multifamily, I can't buy a 300 unit building and then let most of the tenants stay for free for a few months while they figure it out.
Yeah.
I gotta
Yeah,
start
yeah.
monetizing that. That
sure.
business is about the P&L. It's about reducing expenses and increasing your NOI, right? And it's less about people.
Yeah.
And so it just doesn't make me feel good. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think
Yeah.
it's
Right.
amazing. Like
Right.
economies
Yeah.
of scale tell me, yeah, you should focus on that. You make more money for doing the same amount of work, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But for me, it's not just the money, it's the impact I get to have on my community that
Yep.
keeps me in my lane. So when
Yeah.
I'm approached with new strategies, they don't align to both of those things, and I'm
Right.
probably not worried about it.
I love that. I think I remember watching a reel you put up a long time ago that was like you just having a conversation with an owner, and it just seemed like it was so laid back, and it was like,
Yeah.
this is what I do. There was just clarity from the start, like this is what I do,
Yeah.
and I only want this if it's a win-win for both of us, kind of deal. And I guess speak a little bit more about what those conversations look like once you
Yeah.
get. Obviously, the marketing is the big thing in the push, but
Yeah.
when it comes into you, you're probably the main contact still, right? You're talking
Yeah.
to every single owner, and those conversations are typically sellers that are looking or have motivation or need to get
Yeah.
out of their situation, I assume, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're talking about, I'm buying properties at a discount. So obviously, if someone wants to sell a property at a discount, there's a level of pain somewhere, right?
Yep.
They didn't wake up in the morning and go, you know what? I think I want to sell this guy Henry my house for $100,000 less
Yeah.
than it's
Yeah.
worth, right? That's
Yeah.
not the situation. They're selling at a discount because something's wrong. They think that selling their house will give them the cash to fix that problem, or
Right.
the property itself is the problem.
Yeah.
And selling it gets rid of the problem. And so as I started to learn that, I just wanted to always never lose sight of that like there's other people's homes at the end of the wealth that I'm trying
Yeah.
to build, right? At the end of this transaction that I'm trying to get through. That's somebody's home. That's a person. There's some pain there. And so I always teach people and about how to do this business ethically in a way that we're helping people. And sometimes that help will involve me spending my time or money and not buying their house, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's the right thing to do. And so what you're asking, like, how do we approach those sellers or have those conversations? That really just came from realizing that, okay, my job is to figure out how to help them. Sometimes that help will mean I'll get to buy the house, but sometimes
Yeah.
that help will mean I won't, and I should be able to do that. So
Yeah.
I'll tell people, like, if you want someone to teach you how to do this, who's going to give you the list of seller objections and then all the counters to all their objections so that you can get in there and be the shark negotiating with them to get them to agree to your lowball offer. Like I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not how I do the business. I don't have a script.
Right.
I love that.
My
Yeah.
goal is to go in there and figure out what's going on and
Yeah.
how I can help. And so
Yeah.
that's how we approach the conversation. I call it like a brutally honest approach to investing.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a little old lady's house just a couple of days ago, and when I went in there and looked at her house, it just needed so much work.
Yeah.
More work than I think it would have been worth to truly do the deal. And so I knew my offer was going to have to be extremely low.
Yeah.
And, I never want anyone to feel like I'm coming in and taking advantage of their
Mm-hmm.
grandmother or something.
It's hard to navigate.
For sure.
that.
Yeah, it's tough. And so, the way I make my offers really helps with that situation. So what I did in that situation is I documented at a high level what it was going to take to renovate the property.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat her down and I said, hey, I just, all the research I have tells me that this property is probably worth $200,000 after it's fixed up. And she was like, yeah, that's about what I would sell it for. And I said, okay. Well, based on that, I just went through the list of the big things that we knew were
What you
wrong,
need to
right?
do.
We're going to have to spend X amount on this, and we got to fix the deck, and we got to fix this, and she was like, yeah, I get it. And I was like, so my renovation budget's probably going to be around $80,000.
And I got to make
like,
money.
I was like, yes. And then I said, I got to pay a realtor, so that's 6%. So
Mm-hmm.
15 grand. Then I got to pay closing costs. I'm gonna pay yours when I buy it. That's 5. I'm gonna pay mine when I sell it. That's another 5 to 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of all that, I got to make money, right? So
Yeah.
I'm upfront with her. I said, to be frank, I wouldn't do a project this size with this big of a renovation unless I'm going to make about $40,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I would subtract what I'm going to make from it. And I said, so this is the offer, right? So this is what I'd be able to pay you.
Mm-hmm.
And reverse engineering it like that shows her
Wraps
why
their mind
I'm
around
making
it, yeah.
the offer that I'm making.
Right.
But then I said, here is option 1. So option 2 is, you can find someone to just come and fix that back room that we talked about where the floor is sinking, and to fix this back deck. You can probably just list this house on the market yourself in as is condition. You won't get 200, but you may get 100 to 120 for someone that wants to come in here
Right.
and do the work themselves, as long as the home's in livable condition.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, I didn't think about that. And I was
Yeah.
like, and if you need someone to help you with that work, I can give you phone numbers
yeah.
of 2 people that you can call
Yeah.
to come give you quotes that'll give you good prices to help you fix it. But
Mm-hmm.
if I were you, I would do everything I can to get to option 2 first.
Yeah.
And then if that doesn't work, maybe you can call me. But I don't think I'm the best tool
Right.
in the tool
Yeah.
belt for you. Like, that's not a sales pitch.
That's
cool.
Right.
No.
That people
problem
teach, but
solving.
that's me
Yeah.
That's real value.
genuinely telling her what I think is in her best interest based on my expertise in real estate, whether
Yeah.
that financially benefits me or not. And
Right.
that's what
I think
we
the
want to do
big
for
part
people.
about what you just said is when approaching it that way, that lady knows other people too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've gotten a ton of business off of doing the right thing and that the multiplication process of doing the right thing. And she goes,
100%.
hey, Henry did this for me. I got a granddaughter who the dad just died and they got to sell their home and he treated me right. And so then there's your 40K margin there.
Yeah.
And do you see that in your business a lot?
all the time.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the reason I got that lead was from a lady I bought a house from like 2 years ago.
That's cool.
She
Yeah.
was like, call
It's
Henry, he'll
testament,
take care of
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
just
they-
was talking with some just random people in the community. They're like, yeah, Henry bought a house for me. It was a great process, really honest.
Yeah.
So your reputation really precedes you, and I think doing the right thing is huge, regardless of the situation. Even when and being in a position to not need the 40K,
Yeah.
I think is huge
Yeah.
because it allows you to give that open and honest feedback. Just when I'm talking to sellers, I'll go, hey, I don't need the 10K. Hey, when you're talking, I don't need the 40K. So here's what I would do.
Yeah.
Being able to operate out of like an abundance
Yeah,
mindset
for sure.
area,
Yeah.
I think will allow you. It's just passive for you to make the right decision. It's
Yeah.
not like, okay, I got to do the right thing here, but there's an 80K margin.
right.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing more important than reputation, obviously. And you're a guy that's been in the business for
Yeah.
a while now, and you want to continue to do deals. And
Yeah.
same thing for our businesses as agents. Like
Yeah.
reputation is
It's
everything.
a small community, man.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
NWA is growing and it can feel big, but
Everybody's still.
I see people I bought houses from at the grocery store,
That's
Mhm.
crazy.
at the pharmacy,
Yep.
at the local event. I see them all the time.
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
You can't if you screw up,
Yeah.
it's gonna be out there.
It's all about treating people
I've seen
well.
a few times where people screw up and it gets around quick
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Northwest Arkansas,
Yeah.
really quick. I mean, I think in a market maybe like Los Angeles, you can get away with some stuff and
Yeah.
move to the other side of Los Angeles or something like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
NWA, what are we like 500,000 people
Yeah.
all encompassed?
Everybody knows somebody too.
Yeah,
like,
for
sure.
Who knows?
Yeah.
You might be going to get an approval on a new build in a lady
Yeah.
you bought a house from is friends with somebody on the planning commission. You know,
Yeah,
and then you're
exactly.
stuck, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to take care of it.
Exactly.
Well,
And I
Henry's-
think in any
yeah.
business too, it's just it's referral. Even your
Yeah.
business, it's all referral. It
Yeah.
can be referral business. And even if it's a 10-20% of your business, you're still going to get leads from there, and
Yeah.
it's so important.
Where do you
So-
see your most successful? What are the highest percentage of return for your marketing? Is it the mailers? Is it, I mean, cold calls, REI? Is it just referrals? Where do you see your highest and best?
Yeah, I get my most profitable deals from my lead generation website.
Okay.
So,
Oh, wow.
because that's people looking for me, right? So
Yeah,
there's no doubt that there's motivation.
yeah,
Typically, when it's a profitable deal, I get the most volume from direct mail.
Mhm, okay, okay,
So I'll get more deals per year from direct mail than I will on my website. But the ones I get on my website tend to be more profitable.
Do you
And
find
those-
you have to sift through those mail ones a lot? And
Yeah, sift through all of them, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't, even the ones that they fill out the website, a good percentage of those just want retail without having to list it with it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I got another contact for you.
Yeah.
buddy.
Yeah.
And how are
Really
people
do.
finding those your website? Is it from Google Ads or is it just from
I
search?
Run,
Yeah.
I run a Google Ads
Okay.
campaign to push
Yeah.
people to it. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's cool.
Kind of moving into the next section. I had a question for you. Did you, listeners, if you're listening, you can capitalize on 10 secondary market loans, which is basically government-backed loans where you get 30-year debt locked. Did you capitalize on that, and do you have your 10, or
No.
is that something you did, or
I
you do
haven't, I haven't used
commercial?
my 10 yet.
Okay.
I've used a few.
You said I like
on
that yet
side.
in there that you put
Yeah,
in.
no, I like them. I save them, right?
Yeah.
I save them. No, I use local community banks,
Okay.
commercial loans for most everything, and then or private money or hard money.
Okay.
So it just depends on the deal. I'll piece together the funding that makes the most sense for the deal, and typically that means I'll piece together the funding that makes the most sense for what the seller needs,
Right, right.
or what's going to help me get the deal done.
Do you speak on the importance of having the local relationship with the banks? I think that's really huge and something
Yeah.
overlooked. I talk with Brandon and I talk with clients all over the country coming in here wanting to do maybe just a fraction of what you're doing. They're like, I got like Rocket Mortgage, I got Rocket Mortgage or something. But speak on the importance of having that relationship. And
Yeah.
I've been able to see how that gets things done for me that typically don't get done.
Yeah.
Just
There's,
well,
there's just a lot of flexibility in local community lenders, which is great for a real estate investor because every deal is a little different and sometimes needs a bit of flexibility. But when especially if you're growing and scaling, right, the traditional 30-year fixed product isn't very flexible. And so if you've got a deal that doesn't fit perfectly in that box, then you risk losing a deal financing it that way because it may take longer than your seller is willing to wait, or you may have to provide so much information that it's just a big nightmare. It's tough.
that's why I stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the commercial lenders, it's a partnership, right? Because if you think about a local community bank, they make money lending to local community businesses. Like big banks make money giving you loans and selling them off on the secondary market, right? So they'll give you a 30-year fixed and then they'll go sell that loan. That's how they make money. So they want everybody to fit in this box to apply for this loan so we can sell this loan to somebody else. But a small bank just wants to lend to local community businesses and collect the interest and get your deposits in their bank, right?
Yeah.
It's a good
And
one.
so if they have to do that, then the more what you're trying to do fits what they like,
Yeah.
the more flexible they're willing to be with you because they want to make sure that you bring them their business, right?
Yeah.
So if you like, for example, if you were working with a bank and that bank likes funding, large commercial apartment buildings, and I bring them a single family deal, well, they're probably not going to want to work with me. It's too small fries for them.
Yeah.
But if you bring them a big apartment deal, there's all kinds of ways that they might be able to get creative with that loan. They keep it in-house, so they don't have the same, what's the word for?
Regulations.
Yes, they don't have the same regulations that some of the bigger banks are going to have around, especially the government loans.
The committees are smaller.
Right. The
Sure,
committees are
yeah.
smaller. They can, they do have a lending criteria, but a lot of that criteria can bend based on
Yes.
your relationship. And so finding a bank where what you do and what they like to do align can really help you grow and scale. Because if you think about it, like I like single and small multifamily real estate. If I work a bank that likes funding those things, I'm bringing them very low risk loans.
Yeah.
Right. So even if I do 15 loans with them for 15 different houses, if every one of those houses I bought at a 40 to 50% discount,
Yeah.
they're like, well, if
Equity position's great.
If Henry can't pay his loans, we'll just take his houses and we'll sell those things.
Yeah.
We'll even sell them at a discount. We'll make way more money selling those properties than we are on
Right.
the interest Henry's paying. That's like, it's such a low risk thing for them. And so if you find that bank that likes what you do,
Yeah.
then you're able to get really flexible and they can do all kinds of cool stuff like cross collateralization where you know you might not have to bring money to a deal because you have other properties with equity that they'll let you pledge for that deal. But all of that takes trust for them to just want to work.
I just got to
those
work
things.
through that, what you were talking about with it. I was thinking of another primary or something, and she was like, we can just take equity from this. You don't have to bring anything. I was like, really? Like, that's the thing? That's the thing.
Absolutely.
I started down the commercial route because I got so dang tired of, I had to send a picture of me in a Halloween costume at a house when I lived there. They're like, we need to know like you lived at this house. And I sent a picture of me in like a Kiss outfit, and I was just getting pissed, and I was like, Tori, we're doing commercial our next. And then can you imagine like you right now going and getting a normal conventional loan, government backed, and like all the information you would have to.
It infuriates me.
Yeah.
It would be, you'd have to give blood tests, you'd have to pee in a cup.
Yeah.
Even when I'm refinancing, like in a DSCR product, it's just
absurd.
I remember I was refinancing a single family that I have in Springdale that I rent for like $1,500 a month, that I bought for like 120 grand. And they wanted me to prove to them that I could make the monthly payment.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
I have 120 grand. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Just
Unreal.
just do it.
You want the paperwork on every home.
Right.
Yes. That was the big push for me. I do want to capitalize on the 10 things just eventually. I kind of went, all right, I'm locking these 10 in, then midway through I was like, forget that.
I save mine. So when I say I save them, like I like it because it's 30-year fixed rate debt at a lower interest rate than commercial loans.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to have.
For sure.
Right.
I save them when I have a house. Like I've got a few properties. All my short-term rentals are in the Bentonville market, and we all know that the Bentonville market is still growing. Once that new home office campus gets built, I think there's going to be an explosion.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I buy a property in that area, I'm probably going to pay more for that house than I would pay if that house was sitting in Springdale.
Right.
Right. And so I'll save my
We live in
30-year
Springdale, by the way.
debt. I live in Springdale. I've lived in Springdale my whole life. Like, I've lived my whole life.
I saw a bumper
I've been
sticker.
here.
I saw a bumper sticker the other day that said Springdale doesn't suck.
No, Springdale's amazing.
It's not that bad. That's our
Springdale's a sleeper town.
Yeah,
People don't know
it is.
Springdale's cool, and I kind of like it that way.
Yeah,
I do
100%.
too. I've lived there the whole time I've been in Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah.
But and so I know I have to pay more, and so I'll save my 30-year loans for those.
Yes.
Then I can amortize it out longer, and I'll get the cash flow more because I know I'm going to pay a little.
Very safe for
that's
you.
cool.
Very safe play for you as well.
Yeah. I was just
You
gonna
go,
say
you go.
I want to piggyback off too the just kind of the lender question, the 10 loans and stuff like that. I think it's important to have teams, right? And that's obviously a lender is part of your team. Like how important is it for you to have a team built? What that team look like in the beginning too?
Yeah.
Probably just you and your wife, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty much.
how has that kind of evolved now, and to kind of keep the machine going?
I'm going to answer that a couple of ways because you said your audience is new. If you're brand new and you haven't done a deal yet, controversial opinion. Everybody says you need to go build your team. I don't think that.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to build your team.
Yeah.
I think you need to go figure out what a good deal looks like in your market, and then I think you need to go pick one way that you think you can stick with consistently to help you find those deals, and do that until you get a deal.
Yeah.
All your focus should be on going to get a deal.
Yeah.
Don't do anything else.
Yeah.
You don't. The only person on the team that you might need before you get a deal is an agent if you're going to be making on-market offers. If you're not making on-market offers, then you don't even need an agent.
Right.
Other than that, I wouldn't worry about it because everybody else you need on your team, you don't need until you have a deal anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you do need a team, the most important person on my team is my real estate agent by far.
Yeah.
Because he helps me determine the after repair value, which is the most important metric that you need to know as a real estate investor because you don't want to be overpaying. And every offer I make is based on what I think that after repair value is. And the best way to get an accurate after repair value is to have an agent help you run those comps.
Yeah.
You can do it on your own. You just don't have access to as accurate a data because you don't have MLS access. And
Yeah.
so it's harder.
Yeah.
And so having an agent to run your comps is huge for me. But then my agent also sells all my properties for me.
Yeah.
When I first started, I would FSBO my own flips.
Mm-hmm.
And until I started to do actual volume, I was like, I'm not sitting in a house for 3 hours. Like,
Yeah.
The funny thing is like people like, I saved myself on commission. No, your time costs something.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So now I'm paying myself to be a mediocre agent. I might as well pay somebody who's
Yeah.
good at it to
Yeah.
actually be my agent.
Exactly.
So stop doing that. So my agent is the most important. If you want to find an investor-friendly agent, I think the most underutilized way to find an investor-friendly agent is to call your title company.
Mm-hmm.
Call a title company and ask them who are the agents who are always representing investors when they're closing deals.
Yeah.
They'll give you 2 to 3 names off the top of their head.
That's cool.
Right.
That's good.
The second thing you need is you need a contractor, which is a whole can of worms trying to figure out how to find a good contractor.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
I found good ones and bad ones, so I don't
Yeah.
know if I should be the one telling people how to go find good contractors. But
Yeah.
you do need to find a contractor. The best place to do that is referrals, especially if you don't understand how to renovate a home like I did, and I didn't know what a good or bad contractor's work looked like.
Right.
So I had to rely on other people and referrals.
Trial by
But
fire.
lenders, man, lenders are huge. Lenders are like tools in your tool belt. You do need multiple lenders. Again, don't go focus on the money before you have a deal.
Yeah.
Right.
If you had $1 million right now and no deal to buy with it, you'd be sitting there.
Sitting,
right?
yeah.
Go find the deal. But lenders are huge, and you do want to develop relationships with multiple lenders. I had an event this past week where we were teaching people about this stuff, and I had one of the banks I bank with come and speak.
Yep.
The first thing he said to them was, "You need a few of us, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we all do things different."
Yep.
But when you're dealing with sellers in distress situations, every situation is different. So if I need to close a deal in 7 days, my local community bank's probably not the phone call I'm going to make.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
they're going to take 2 weeks to 30 days, right? So you need something else. You need hard money or private money or something that can move faster, or you need a small bank who's super fast.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There are a few of them, but typically you have to have a relationship with them
Yeah.
before they're going to be able to move that quickly with you.
Yeah.
You know, there are situations where, like, I had a deal one time. I was buying it was a big deal for me. It was 5 units, and I was paying $500,000 for it.
Right.
Typically, I'd have to put 15% down. I went shopping for a bank who'd let
Yeah.
me put less than 15% down, because that 5% on a $500,000 was a decent
lot,
chunk
yeah.
of money,
Yeah.
right? And so I had to go find a bank who would be a little more flexible. So every bank's a little different. You need different banks. They're tools in your tool belt.
Yeah.
Use the right tool for the right job. You marry
Yeah.
the deal and what the deal needs to the lender and what they can offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's-
100% agree with that.
Yeah, and it sounds like you can't be the contractor, you can't be the agent, you can't obviously you can't
You
be
don't
the
want
lender.
to be.
Yeah.
You don't want to be. I think I learned that lesson from working with Tyler Casey.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I managed my properties until we had about 70 some odd units, maybe more.
Dang.
And it got
brutal.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I say I because it wasn't me; it was my wife. She was doing most
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
day, right? And I was always a big advocate on you should manage them yourself, because nobody's going to care about your portfolio like you are. No one's going to care about your tenants like you are, and I stand on that. Like, I think that that's very true.
Yeah.
But that's not the most important part, or the only important part about managing a portfolio. You need to care, but you also need to be efficient.
Right.
Because it's the lack of efficiency that costs you money. And so when I sat down with Tyler and he was trying to get me to have him manage my properties, I was like, man, I just don't know if I want to give up 10%. And he was looking at my portfolio and my properties and my vacancies, and he was like, well, Henry, you know, Tyler talks
Here's the math.
talks super
So
slow.
blunt.
I
Yeah.
was like, well, Henry, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. You're probably already paying for a property manager. I think you're losing more than 10% right here. So
Might as well.
you're already paying for a property manager. You're just paying for a bad one.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I
a
was
great way to
like,
put it.
Man.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
Because and he told me that he was like, yeah, I'm not going to care about your properties as much as you are. They're your properties. No
Right.
one's going to care more.
Right.
But I can guarantee you, I'm more efficient than you.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got more resources. I've got more processes. I'm built to do this.
He's
are
built
not.
that machine.
You are not.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was it.
Yeah.
I was
Just
you're
like
right.
he couldn't
You're
come
right.
into your
Right.
business and be as efficient as you are and
Right.
stuff.
Right.
There's a book I read recently, 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dan Sullivan.
I just read it.
You just read that?
Yeah.
I'm on Who Not How right now, which is a very well-known book.
I read that right before.
Really? I got it in my backpack right now, which is like doing like how can I implement that in the bit? And I
Read
think
the 80-20 principle next.
80-20 principle.
Say no more,
I'll write that down. But
I'd almost argue stop reading what you're reading and read the 80-20.
okay,
Because then the 80-20 principle might teach you how to read the other two books.
okay.
Okay.
I finished the 10X is easier than 2X, and I was it like changed my mind blew up. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't need to go to inspection. Like
Yes.
I can.
Yeah.
What can I pay for? How much is my time worth? Like what can I do? And it's crazy. Once you start implementing some of those things, what your process, and I'm sure you probably already implemented a lot of that, but it just further kind of your new 20% is the different 20% maybe a year down the road, and that keeps evolving until you're like hyper focused on what you need to do. So I think that's huge.
I had an agent tell me one time when I was first getting started, he was like, real estate agents are not truck drivers. You know, he's like the money is made in the office or wherever you're doing your deals. And so I think when you really are able to focus on the money making activities, that's when you can really start to scale, I think. So
yeah. If you had those deals that you bought, let's say on commercial floating loans, 5-year floating rate at say 2019, are those still making sense? Did you kind of mentally predict like, hey, in 2018, 2019, hey, we know this is going to go up? Like, what does that look like now for you?
Yeah.
Either for your students or your personal portfolio.
No. I do podcasts too. So
Yeah.
So for the people who are listening to know what you're saying, is when I first bought properties on commercial loans, typically they're on 3 to 5 year adjustable rates.
Yes.
So if I bought something in 2019, it's probably coming due around now.
Yes.
Right. And when I bought it in 2019, interest rates were 5.5% to 6%.
Yeah.
And now they're about a point higher than that.
Yeah.
Luckily, because it came down.
Yeah.
Points higher than they were before. And so, were we predicting that we'd be at the interest rates we are now? No, I didn't think we would be as high as we are now.
Right.
So some of those properties that we are or have refinanced, we did refinance on an 8%, and they are making us less cash flow than they were making on the 5% that we had before. Luckily, we were smart enough that when 2020 and 21 came around, we refinanced some of those properties that we bought in 2019, 2018, and 2017 into 3% debt on a 5-year AM. So some of those that were supposed to come due now that were 5s are now at 3s and 3.5s, and they don't come due for another couple of years. So, but there were a couple that we missed. And I remember sitting back thinking, why did I not refinance that in 2021? And so, I did have a couple of properties that came due, and we just refinanced them at the current rate. That's what it is. We're getting less cash flow, but we were also buying properties way cheaper back then.
But there's the importance of that.
We had plenty of room. So luckily, they're still cash flowing.
I think that's a little bit of a dangerous part. And it's because I have a lot of clients come to me and they go, I want something that breaks even. I want something with $100 cash flow a month. Then that property tax gets raised once. HVAC goes out once. There's all your cash flow for the year. You have a floating rate, and then it goes up. Like there goes your whole like break even plan. Now over the course of 2019 to now, rents have appreciated as well. I personally think we're kind of on this more flattening out of the rental scale. Personally, in Northwest Arkansas, we've been going up and up a lot. I think the only place that's still probably trending upwards heavily is around the university right now. They have a housing crisis, but I think as a whole, a lot of people like to come into it with this, let's just break even. We're here for the appreciation. Northwest Arkansas, but I think you buying your deal is really smart, and having that cash flow gives you the ability to make it a little tighter, and you're still good. I think that's really, to the listener listening, buy your deal smart. I would encourage you potentially not to just get something that breaks even. I think that's a slippery slope.
Depends on your financial position, right? If you're already fairly independently wealthy, and you make money in some other avenue that's highly taxed, then buying a break-even rental property in Northwest Arkansas is a phenomenal idea.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you can cost segregate that thing and offset the money you're bringing in on your other property. But if you're brand new and you're not independently wealthy yet, you have to buy with margin.
Yeah.
Right? That margin may not be cash flow, but it better be margin.
Yeah.
You better have a way out of that thing if it doesn't do what you want it to do. If you can't turn around and sell it and make your money back plus some, then you're going to put yourself in a tough spot.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you always have an exit strategy with every deal you're buying? Two exit strategies.
Every deal needs 2 exit strategies because your first one can get blown up.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, I tell everybody you should underwrite a deal with 2 exit strategies, right? Because things change, right? Especially if you're underwriting a deal as a short-term rental. If you underwrite a deal as a short-term rental and that's the only way it works, and then regulation comes down the pipe and kills your short-term rental strategy, and all you can do is either make it a midterm rental or sell it, and midterm is only going to work in certain areas.
Yep.
And you try to sell it, but you paid retail value for it, so now you can't sell it, and you're going to lose money. You're hurting, right?
Yep.
Or even if you underwrite a deal as a flip, that's cool. Like, I can find a house that I can pay $180 for. I can put 40 in it, and I can sell it for $325. That's a phenomenal flip.
Right.
I make a great profit. But if something happens and I can't flip that property, maybe I have contractor issues, who knows, right? Life starts life.
Yeah.
And I have to sell that or I have to rent that property out to keep it, maybe, because I had one in Salem Springs that I planned to flip, and then we couldn't sell it for a bunch of numerous reasons. But I just flipped it to a rental, stuck a tenant in it. I had a second exit. That second exit, I'm making a very little bit of cash flow.
Right.
At least it's making some money.
Yeah. Head above
If
water.
you pay $180 and put 40 in it, you're not going to rent that thing for $2,500 in most areas of Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah,
You're
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's always, you need 2 exits, right? What's your secondary exit? Maybe your secondary exit is a short-term rental. Maybe your secondary exit is to sell it.
Yeah.
But you should underwrite a deal that you can get out of 2 ways.
Yeah. I love that you said that. I have a lot of clients come to me, and I'm sure Brandon as well, that are like, short-term rental needs to be $1 million. And I'm like, hey, we can't get long-term. We can't even get midterm rents on that. And I think being able to provide that insight creates a lot of value for people and even our personal portfolios, because we are a growing area. We're bringing in national ideas and things to the short-term rental market, and we've seen where it's blown up in other markets across the nation where the city just goes, hey, middle fingers, we don't care about short-term rentals anymore. You guys can just eat it. And I think that's something to just be aware of. And I'll say, hey, we're going to underwrite this as a long-term and a short-term.
Yes.
I really feel iffy anything above 400 getting a long-term rental out of it unless it's nice. Especially, I have people come to me as their first investment. They want a short-term rental, and it's only a short-term. And I'm like, guys, I love the enthusiasm, but we gotta do a couple different ways.
Terrible idea.
Yeah. I just
my short terms, I didn't buy short terms. I bought long-term rentals that were using as short terms.
okay.
Right.
They turned into that?
Any one of them, with the exception of one, can turn into a short-term rental. But
Okay.
the one that I can't turn into a short-term rental, my second exit is a flip. So, because it's got so much equity in it. Yeah, I paid $225 for it. I put $70 in it, but it's worth $500.
Yeah.
So if I can't do the short-term strategy, I'll just sell it. The other ones, I'll just stick a tenant back in them. Right?
Yeah.
You have to have 2 exits. Like, all my short terms are in Bentonville because Bentonville doesn't have any regulations on short-term rental, and they have the tourist business attraction, right? It's a perfect formula for short-term rentals.
Of course.
No regulation and people coming in all the time who need a place to stay and not enough hotels for them to stay. You should absolutely think about short-term rentals in a market like that.
Yeah.
But what are they building in
ton,
downtown
yeah.
Bentonville right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Building a ton of hotels.
2 hotels there, one
2
on campus.
hotels, right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of apartments coming into the area as a whole too.
And the Waltons have some money into those hotel projects, and if they decide one day that they want their hotels full more than they want Airbnbs full, you better believe
For sure.
regulation coming in, right? They got that kind of pull.
Yeah.
So you got to have an exit.
You have to be able to predict that.
Yeah, I love that.
Brandon, we're getting close, but
Yep.
there's one last question here that we'd like to wrap it up with.
I think we like to ask this question a lot, but for you, a lot of people talk about getting into real estate, and I think what isn't talked about a lot of the time is, obviously we talked about exit strategy, but for you, long term, for your family and everything like that, what has the goal been for you? Is it to reach a certain point of cash flow? Is it to reach a certain point of units?
75-year-old Henry.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
what are you hoping to get to? You know,
It doesn't even
once we-
necessarily have to be a number. Just a lot of people think about entry, and no
Yeah.
one thinks about like, hey, I'm 75, 80 years old. What's it look like now?
Yeah.
Is it give it to the kids? Is it liquidate in stock market? Is it, I'd like to.
I think the goal is to be at that point and be able to do whatever you want, right? And so when you think about a real estate portfolio or a real estate business, there's 3 buckets that I like to think about. There's an acquisitions or a growth bucket, right? So you got to grow your portfolio to where you want it to be. Then there's a stabilization bucket, because if you're buying things that need value add, you got to do the work so that they perform like you underwrote them to perform. They don't perform like that on day one unless you're buying turnkey. And then there's the protection bucket, and that's you paying off those assets. Because I own 120 doors, but I don't own 120 doors, because the bank can come and take any of those back that they want to.
Low
right?
equity position.
Right. And so as long as you have debt on them, someone can take it from you.
Right.
So right now, I probably operate in any given time as a real estate investor, no matter who you are, you're going to operate the majority in one of those buckets and a smaller amount in another, right?
Yeah.
So when you're starting, you're mostly in the acquisitions bucket, and then you're probably 10-20% in the stabilization as you're stabilizing the things that you're buying. And then at some point, you're going to be like, all right, I'm good. I have enough.
Yeah.
Now I need to focus on mostly stabilization,
Yep.
so that I'm getting those things to produce the income that they're producing, right? And then you start to do more of the payoff bucket, right?
Yeah.
Which is now I'm trying to pay off these assets faster so that I can get there. And across all 3 of those buckets, you need money. Right?
Yes.
You need money coming in. So the way I run my business, the way I run my business is I flip houses. I flip houses. The money that I get flipping helps me buy more. But now I personally am more in this middle bucket.
Right.
So now I'm still flipping, but the money is now going more towards helping me accelerate stabilization.
Yeah.
Right. More so than me buying new assets.
Yeah.
And then as I get more stabilized, I'll still flip.
Yeah.
But the flips are now going to help me accelerate paying off my properties. And
Like,
the
hey, let's
more-
take this 40K and throw it into this. Yeah.
The more that are paid off, the more accelerated cash flow you get, because one paid off house will pay you like 10 leveraged, right? And so as I pay off more, then that gives my portfolio to kick off more cash flow so that I can start doing less flips because I have more cash flow.
Yeah.
Then I'll eventually be able to ramp down the flips and truly live off the portfolio that I built, right? But flipping is the cash vehicle that's getting me through all those.
Yeah.
You don't have to flip as your cash vehicle. It could be some other business that you own.
Yeah.
It could be a number of businesses that
Right.
you own. It could be your W-2 income that's helping you do that. Whatever it is, you need money across all 3 of those buckets. So that's my plan.
I love that you said. My wife and I are going to talk about that. We've been talking about, what do we do? Do we keep building?
Yeah.
There's an idea that you just focus on paying one off and you get that paid off, and then you use that to pay off the second one, and then at some point you got this rolling snowball.
Yeah.
We've been talking about that, but a bunch of I like how you segregated it into 3 different buckets.
Yeah.
I
It's
think
almost a little bit of everything at the
a little
same
bit
time.
of everything
Yeah.
as you kind of transition, and okay, we got our number,
Because you
we
don't
got
truly
this.
get to stop accumulating. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
good with the portfolio that I have now, but I flip. And
Right.
flipping brings me this income that I got to pay taxes on. And if I don't want to pay taxes on that money, then I got to buy a couple more units every
Right.
year that I
Yeah.
can cost segregate to help me not
Yes.
pay those taxes. So
Right.
it's a slow transition.
A curious question I have is how many units do you get before you're like, all right, let's do a cost seg? Is it like every 10 we're doing one? Because for me, I'm like, I might need a cost seg this year. Like, we're trying to figure out, like, do we do one? Do we wait till next year? Is it like, do you have it?
Where's my camera? Is it
Here, talk to your
I am not
CPA.
a tax advisor.
I'm not illegal.
allowed to give, legal or tax advice. But that is, so that's why when we talked about building your team, I think the one person on people's team that they always forget about is the sooner you get an accountant and a bookkeeper, the better.
Yeah.
That's always something we wait on until we need it, and then we go, man, I should have got that sooner.
Then they're having to
Yeah,
unravel
could've done all
this
this
stuff.
back.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's a question, so we meet with our accountant
Yeah.
quarterly, right? And he then takes a look at the money that we're making both outside of real estate and in real estate in terms of flips. And then that helps guide us. He'll say, all right, well, we need to do this many cost segs this year to help
Yeah.
offset the income that we're predicting. And so I would tell you it's not really a number per year. It's just a number per how much money you're making.
Personally, yeah.
And how much, what your comfort level is with
Got it.
offsetting that
Yeah.
tax. Some people are like, I don't want to pay any taxes, right? And so
Of
how
course.
many do I need to buy to not pay any taxes? And some people are like, oh, I want to pay some taxes because I'm not trying to get that red flag.
Yeah.
Right. So
For
sure.
it's just a matter of how much income are you making and then how comfortable are you with your taxes. So for me right now, I'll tell you personally, any property I have that is eligible to be depreciated, accelerated depreciation on in the current year, I'm gonna do it.
Right.
Because with the current administration, depreciation
It's phasing
is
out.
going away.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I wait and depreciate an asset next year, I'll only get 50%,
Right.
60%, whatever
Yep.
it is in terms of like 70% that we get right now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Henry, thank you for coming on. Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
We've really super enjoyed this. The conversation, we actually, I think, got through everything as well. So it's perfect timing. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you
on,
very
sir.
much. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
we
Thank you
appreciate
for the
you.
gift. That's
Of
super
course.
thoughtful,
Absolutely.
guys.
Of course.
Do you, real quick too, do you mind kind of plugging where they can find you and,
Yeah.
and stuff like that?
Best place to find me is you can go to my website. It's www.henrywashington.com, or you can check me out on Instagram. I'm at the Henry Washington on Instagram.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for
Appreciate
listening to episode 38.
Thank you.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.